da bimbo, ti chiamo angoscia d'adulto, ma oggi ti guardo e ti chiedo, vuoi ballare con me?
Stephanie.
Everything we do, like Giulia said, has an impact. And everything comes with a little homework to do. So you want to buy food, you have to buy food, but you have to look at the labels, because every label is very important, especially with the processed food. You don't know what you're eating. And the same goes with whatever medication you want to get, whether you want to get it homeopathic, or if you want to go with the traditional medicine or the Chinese medicine, or even exactly the clothes is the same thing. You want to look at the labels, how they have been made. And my pessimistic view is that I feel horrible to say that, because I feel like I'm the older generation going like this on the younger generation, but I feel like people are lacking the will to actually do something like that, because there is an anxiety. And this anxiety is produced by the fact that everything you do has an impact, and we're going down. And it's obvious we are going down. The overproduction of clothing, and not only clothing, the overproduction of anything that ends up filling up the landfills and ends up being a huge environmental problem amongst the others, is a reason of stress that might actually cause the opposite reaction. So there is either an extreme attention to these kind of things, which should be actually taught as a behavior rather than as a subject in school. Like, the attention to the things that we do should be taught, not necessarily, for me, this is my own personal opinion, not necessarily in fashion, but in everything that we do in life. So again, food is another one, or medicine is another one. I mean, the medications that we take. But or there is another reaction, which is, okay, I can't keep up with everything. And even once I read this article that even tea and the production of black tea has a huge impact environmentally and on certain populations. So I'm pessimistic because I don't see everybody willing to go through that path. Let's say we pick fast fashion instead of I'm talking about fast fashion instead of talking of bigger high fashion companies, because fast fashion companies produce much more, many more collections, many more designs, and concentrate a lot on the greenwashing that we were talking about before. But I feel like it's hard to break that cycle. And it is hard because, first of all, there's the greenwashing. Second of all, they're so cheap. And third of all, when they offer you, they're feeding this circle by offering, for example, 15% off every time you return something. You buy more, and that you're going to throw it away again, thinking that you're gonna get another discount. So you're just feeding us a vicious cycle that it's not gonna stop like that. So I feel I'm very pessimistic about it, and that's why on my own I generally look towards secondhand or vintage pieces, because we have so much behind us. We have so much behind us that could be upcycled, could be reused, that is really not that necessary to look for something new when we have so much that we can already work with. So yeah, I'm pessimistic. That's that's all I have to say.
You were telling me that when you moved here, you were not about to pursue necessarily a model career until you realized that your age wasn't a problem anymore. Related to that, and this is also about the past and how beauty was pictured and showed in magazines. But what have you destroyed or kept from that kind of past, from these Eurocentric beauty standards?
What have I destroyed or kept? Okay, pretty much destroyed everything, in the sense that when I first started modeling, I started that I was already old. I was 22, but I was considered in Milan, I was considered already old for the industry. They had asked me to lie about my age and to say that I was 18 or 19, because I was already past my prime. And back then, it's funny because I remember the trends very clearly when I first started. The younger, obviously, you were, the better. Even 13, 14-year-olds were looked as amazing fashion muses. We're talking really kids. There was a girl when I first started, she was 12, from Russia. She was beautiful, but she was 12. She was a kid. So that is something that even back then I realized that that wasn't normal at all. And I've seen that perpetrating itself for quite a long time. The average age thankfully went up. So it wasn't about 12 and 14 years old anymore, but we were talking more like early 20s. But I have to say, nothing really, I didn't really keep anything from that. Actually, I've learned to detach myself from it. Working as a model with certain standards of my hair having to be black, or with like a little bit of dye, but nothing major, having to be very skinny all the time and having to be perfect, at the end of the day had worn me out. And I realized that I didn't want to be judged as a person for what I looked like, and I wanted to go beyond that. Now, the fashion industry, when I started again, gave me a little bit of hope. And it gave me hope because thankfully there is a widening of this vision. And now beauty can be seen pretty much in every form, every color, every shape. And that's great. That's fantastic. I feel very comfortable with that. And I feel like that break was definitely very useful for me to realize that even though I refused and I was in denial that I wasn't gonna be following their standards just because those were the standards to work, I actually was, because I was being judged continuously. And with this new industry that is more about the personal character and the allure that one has, I feel more comfortable, and I feel like that way of seeing beauty or at least is starting to belong to the past.
Thank you. Want to answer?
Oh, I wanted to jump off of like what she said, because I thought it was really interesting what Stephanie said. I don't know if like you guys know about the Model Alliance and the work that they've been doing, but this whole conversation has led me to just think that in general, we need more like laws in the fashion industry to like protect, whether it's the garment workers, whether it's the models. Like I feel like models being that young, like that's just, you hear about all the horror stories of like these girls being exploited by like photographers. And like, if you just look at the news, like Epstein and all these like crazy, scandals, like we need like more legislation. And like now in New York, there's a lot of momentum behind what's called the Fashion Workers Act, which is like really exciting. And that like is to protect, I know, like mostly like models and actors and people that are like talent of the fashion industry. But then also moving back to, we were talking about like circular fashion, there's the Fabric Act, which is another one that's a big one in New York. And I, along with other activists during Fashion Week, like shut down traffic near the Michael Kors store when all the celebrities were coming in. And our photo actually got into Vogue, which was cool. It was like just photo Vogue, but it was still really neat because like usually those magazines, let's just face it, they're really into capitalism and selling things, and they don't care about activists, even if a lot of them are, you know, climate activists that have big followings. They don't really care usually. So it was nice that they actually kind of were championing us as, you know, activists trying to change the industry for the better and like get these laws in place, you know. I don't want to put Europe on a pedestal, but something I also thought about was how Copenhagen Fashion Week is actually paving the way for sustainability in fashion. And I really hope that New York Fashion Week follows suit, because it's very troubling to me as a designer to see that there's literally no ground rules for submissions for designers. Like, they do not care how sustainable your collection is. Like, you know, we're talking about how we already have enough clothes on the planet to clothe the next like 6 generations. We don't even need new clothing, right? They should have something in the guidelines where designers have to use some sort of dead stock material, like a percentage, maybe 70% or something. Most of the collection should be used material. Otherwise, you know, we're right. We're all going to it's a perpetual, like, never ending, like, going to the landfill. You know what I mean? We need to have, like, better hold of, like, what to do next, I think.
Absolutely. Do you want to add anything about the Eurocentric beauty standards?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I know enough about it. I really love the book, though. I'll just like this book that like kind of, I remember being in like, I think my early 20s, and I don't know where I picked it up, but it's called Survival of the Prettiest, I believe. And it's about it's kind of like the beauty myth, where it just discusses a lot of these, like, you know, why people gravitate towards symmetry and all these like things, and like a lot of it like pertaining to fashion. It's like, it is pretty troubling that I think we base so much, I think, on the outside, you know, and like kind of forget to look past towards the inside. So I like when I see, you know, people that maybe are models or like people in the entertainment industry that have all eyes on them, but then there's something deeper than this outside image. And I think that's important. And I think it goes along with, you know, being Italian of, you know, an Italian of color. I hope that people don't just like look at me and see me as this like my exterior self. Like, I hope people get to know me and like what I'm about, you know. And I think that goes for most people. I think they want to be seen more than just like whatever they look like.
Giulia.
I think that also it's important from the fashion industry, there should be a lot more of conversations or content, whether it's editorial or any kind of content that we can think of, even organizing a podcast, even organizing a chill conversation in a cafe, whatever it might be, a panel. I think the content from the fashion industry should mirror also its consumers. Granted, fashion since the 1900s, right, has been always this elitist and classist industry, right? You only have access to fashion, commercial fashion, as we see today. If you can afford certain clothes, if you're also located in certain places, a community in the middle of, let's take Italy, in the middle of Tuscany will have a different relationship to fashion compared to a community that is based in, say, New York. Very different, not only because of the cultural, aspects, but also access to the media just media in general. So TV connections, entertainment, also education hubs that can help you also grasp new news and information around certain topics. So it will be different. But on a general note, it should be important from fashion media to create content that also reflects what do they look like, the people who consume fashion. So the example of the 12, 13, 14-year-old already being models, they are children. Let's be real. They may be preteen. You can consider them, more on the spectrum of life. Sure, closer to womanhood than maybe being children, being little girls, but they're still girls. They're still children. They are entitled to enjoy their adolescence in the safest and healthiest way. You cannot, push agendas. You shouldn't push agendas to their bodies. We're talking about bodies at the end of the day. So it is important also, again, to talk about the consumers, but also talk about the people that are part of the fashion industry as talents. So, for example, when it comes to content per se, why not have, again, older women X. I like also the term women X, spelled with instead of with the E, the X. Again, I don't think there is a translation for that in Italian yet, but women X involves all femme-presenting individuals, right? An example could be having older women X, right? And when I say older, I don't necessarily mean it in a, with some prejudice around the term older. But that's the majority of the consumers, the people that have actually buying power, are not the 13, 14, 12-year-olds. Those are the ones that are much more impressionable, but they're gonna ask mommy and daddy or their caregivers to actually buy the stuff. But they're not actually buying them with their own money. There are other people that are clearly older. They have much more experience. They have already their bag, like financial bag, and they can actually afford certain stuff. So why not talk to them? Why not have advertisement that is, has older models from different, heritages, that have also different sizes, literally. Even when it comes to the body positivity movement and plus size movement, there is only one type of plus size, model that you can think of. One of the pioneers that I think would be, great to see more people like her would be Ashley Graham. I don't know if you ever heard of her. She's a plus size model from Nebraska, very popular here in the United States. But her own work and image and career and trajectory is not enough. There are 10,000 of other people like that, like her, who are also social activists. So I think also, again, when it comes to content, having people that, make the content that actually reflect the people that buy the products, that people that interact. So having models so young, even boys, we are talking only about women right now, but also boys and men should be, and non-binary folks should be into the conversation. We shouldn't be scared of aging. Like, it's beautiful, I think. Like, I don't see any problem. I'm not scared of death or any. I don't want to get dark, but like, or philosophical, but I think that fashion should mirror life. We're talking about lifestyles, things that we consume. It should be enjoyable. So there's nothing wrong in, soffiare le candeline, like celebrate your birthdays and, enjoy life, enjoy your ages.
Yeah, I think this has a lot to do with representation and represent all of us. So the more we feel represented, and the more we accept who we are. So there is not like just one type of person, just one type of beauty that we need to reach, like in terms of accomplish that kind of like size in order to be accepted. And I'm glad that fashion nowadays, it's a little more aware of that and sensitive. I think also is used as marketing as well, but I don't mind if that is the direction, because it's a healthy direction. So I think it's a very important change that hopefully bit by bit we'll get there, because it was pretty interesting that even in Italy, beauty back in the 90s was the blonde girl with the blue eyes. Like, even like as a white Italian, I remember while being a teenager, looking at these magazines and not finding anyone that really looked like me, and feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, I'm not beautiful enough. It's such a waste of time when you realize, oh, I was so cute, I was so beautiful, my body was just perfect the way it was. But you realize these kind of things a little later. And I hope like teenagers now don't have those issues, but of course we know that there are still like those kind of stereotypes and standards that lead the market. Growing up in the 90s, cultural appropriation was something like that everybody was doing. If we think about even like, right, if we think about singers of any kind, like even in music, you will see like people dressing with accessories that were like from some other culture. I would like to know, what is your opinion on cultural appropriation?
Well, cultural appropriation has a negative tone to it that I don't necessarily see, in the sense that because I grew up probably in the 90s, like I lived my teenager years in the 90s, I saw that a lot. A lot of my friends were wearing dreadlocks, and some of them were wearing like hip hop or rap, kind of like loose clothing. And I don't see that as necessarily an appropriation. I see it as an incorporation, which is a little different, in the sense that I've always, even for myself, I've always appreciated not being one thing, but being many things. Not only Italian and Caribbean, but being 40, for example, now a 48-year-old person that one day feels one thing, and the other day, I'm talking about lighter subjects. I'm not talking about my beliefs, but I do feel like I'm constantly moving. I'm constantly taking, absorbing, being inspired by whatever else that I might or might not know. And I feel like taking inspiration or incorporating, even like cultures change, and we are going that direction. In Italy, there's this big scare because Italians aren't reproducing enough, and it's becoming an old country, with people being older and not as many Italian kids. And there's, at the same time, there's a big wave of migration coming from Africa. So this will inevitably create a shift in the Italian culture. It's always been there. I mean, Italy has been Italy for just a a certain amount of years, decades, but we've always been a mix. And I've always found fascinating this process of the cultures melting, the inspiration or the natural process of two cultures melting. Of course, when we talk about appropriation in the sense like in music or in fashion, it's necessary to keep always keep present. I don't know if you say that in English, but it's always necessary to show where you're getting a certain inspiration from, like recognize there should be a recognition. Yes, so for me, yes to cultural appropriation in terms of inspiration. It's also a way of admiring a certain aspects of a certain culture, but this needs to be done without a sense of superiority or a sense of disrespect, in the sense of you have to be respectful of the things that you are being inspired by. And I am noticing myself, I'm using this inspiration word a lot because I find it extremely inspiring and I find it extremely fascinating. We are becoming a melting pot because of historic events. And I just find it beautiful if it's done respectfully.
If it's done properly, absolutely. In hip hop, we say kind of pay a homage. So when you wear something, or even as an accessory, you also want to know the history behind it.
For example, I find exaggerated reactions when, such as, who was that? Some big pop singer wearing dreadlocks a few years back. Who was that? Lady Gaga or something. Somebody that was wearing dreadlocks and in their video, or maybe it was Aquafina, I think. But anyway, and they created a big scandal. For me, I don't care. I mean, that's not for me, that is an exaggeration. I don't, when I think of cultural appropriation, I'm not thinking of that. That is not even considerable.
Especially about dreadlocks, I feel, especially in United States, if you're black and you have dreadlocks, you get probably profiled by the cops. Is also like part of the Rastafari religion. But yeah, I get it. I mean, I understand definitely like your point of view.
Well, I'm just very open when it comes to this kind of subjects. And yes, it has a sacred meaning, but I wore it maybe because I wore dreadlocks when I was 18 years old, and it wasn't because I was a Rastafarian. It was because I had a certain way of thinking, and dreadlocks reflected my way of thinking towards different subjects in my day-to-day life in Italy. So I don't see it as necessarily an offense towards another culture.
Yeah, I mean, I guess something that keeps coming to mind is like, what exactly is culture, right? And then, I mean, because we're all like we're multiracial and multicultural. So then, can multicultural and multiracial people like have their own culture? I don't know. It's just an interesting like kind of thing that I grapple with, being mixed race, like, and having these multi, ethnic like backgrounds. Like, I think it's an interesting conversation.
At the end of the day, two things. People are lazy, meaning that they don't do their homework. They want to wear a Nirvana t-shirt or AC/DC you were not even born in those years. You'd never heard a song by them. Like, what are you doing? But you like the logo, you like the colors, and you just go with it. So one, people are lazy, and the other thing is, at the end of the day, people are gonna do whatever they want to do. Again, what is culture? We are all, inevitably, we're gonna be all a melting pot.
Right.
What is culture? Like, that's the elephant in the room, meaning culture is dynamic. It can always shift left, right, up, down, stay in the center for however long it wants to be. My personal perspective on cultural appropriation when it comes to fashion, my first approach to it was, the first time that I even heard cultural appropriation was when I was already in the United States, not when I was in Italy, absolutely not. Even though after I knew what it was, I understood, oh, that happened in Italy. I could see Rastafari or dreadlocks worn by more white people than black people in Florence, especially teenagers. And I was a kid because I left Italy when I was 19. I also went to a very conservative and private school, so everybody dressed the same. Everybody was the same, like no creativity at all. So anytime that I would see these kind of people and I was attracted to them, literally. My best friends were literally all the people not from my high school or middle school. I was always the weird one. And anytime that somebody would come from these, clustered groups of alternatives, and I loved them and I wanted to be friends with them. So it was then that, yes, with a hindsight, I was like, oh, that was cultural appropriation. And at first, again, now I made peace with it, but a lot of these concepts that I was thrown at, like cultural appropriation or even racism, what does it mean to be mixed, intersectionality, I learned them in the United States. I learned them in the New York context and in college. So very liberal, extremely mid-post, Barack Obama era, so Trump. I came here in 2016 in the same school that they had the election debate. So it was very polarized. The things that I learned, the environment was very polarized, and I was drawn to the most, of course, free and open-minded, groups of people that had these philosophies. So at first I was like, oh damn, now I'm learning all these things, but I'm too old. And I had a bit of rage inside of me towards Italy. Italians are so old. They're so, it's their fault. It's my friend's fault that they don't understand these things. And I had this rage because I thought, oh, now that I'm here, I understand how the world works. And no, it's nobody's fault that, you're just having access to this terminology and how things work because you're here, but those things also exist there. But because there are two different contexts and two different histories, it's going to happen in a different way. So it is inevitable that even Italy will become a melting pot very soon, extremely soon. Cultural appropriation is, again, I have, for example, when it comes to hair, I don't think that white people should do locks, in my opinion, but not because maybe they can be even good looking. I don't care. It's mostly the nature of your hair. Your hair will be damaged. It's straight hair. It's not meant, I'm a very pragmatic person, so your hair will get damaged. Just like if I want to keep, straight in my hair, I can do that. I'm not appropriating Caucasian culture or anything like that, but it's gonna damage my hair, the person that I am, my, physiology. So again, cultural appropriation at the end of the day will happen, but what's something that I'm very much critical is people should do the homework and give credits when credits it's due. If I feel inspired by wearing a t-shirt that says something, or a bracelet that comes from, we mentioned Rastafari, so Caribbean culture, or I don't know, a Native American headpiece, please do your work and understand why you shouldn't wear it. If you're not part of that community, why you shouldn't wear it and why people from that community would get upset about it. Again, it's your job to understand, and everything that you do has an impact. But like we said earlier, this approach also causes a lot of anxiety, like, oh, I can't even be myself and express myself and be free and experiment. So again, it's an interesting subject, and just like culture, it's dynamic, and we'll see how, it will evolve. But at the end of the day, my answer is, what is culture if we want to actually understand cultural appropriation?
I feel it also depends how you do it and which kind of person you are, besides, because like that give the context of what you're wearing, right? When I know what you're about, what you stand for, then I see what you're wearing and kind of connect the dots, but sometimes we have people that are possibly even racist, even wearing dreadlocks, right? Which is crazy. Or when we say cultural, I'm thinking about also like traditional customs, like I'm thinking about the Asian culture, for example, there's very recognizable the Indian bindi, or like the native feathers, like especially when people use it for carnival, that shows this respect for shore, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything?
I guess like it just led me to think though that like I guess like society is so segregated, especially in like the US. Like I think like it's hard to talk about this conversation, I think, and like not talk about like segregation and how like people just, and even just like in friend groups, like you see lots of cliquey, like people kind of, I think, are drawn to people that look like them, which has always been kind of puzzling to me, since I have always like, at least in my hometown, didn't really look like anybody, including my family. So it was like interesting to think about. And I think in general though, like it just leads me to think that from having this conversation as like multiracial, multicultural people, it's a different, I think like that is, we have like a sort of a unique viewpoint on it, because in a sense I recognize personally that like I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping to culture, like when I tried to join Italian club, or when I did join Italian club in college, like that's just one example. It doesn't have to do with fashion, but people did not see me as being Italian, even though I was more Italian than some of the people in there, right?
That was for me in college. Sorry to interrupt, but like, absolutely, right? I can see that because funny thing, it happened to me the first 2 weeks I was at Hofstra University, so where I got my BA from. There was this Italian festival. First and foremost, they were all Italian Americans.
Okay, yeah, it's different.
Which is very different. And I was amazed. Nobody speaks Italian here. Actual Italian. And when, of course, it was my first, again, not even 2 weeks. I had arrived straight from Florence. When I saw the spelling of Zeppoles, I was like, oh, but that's incorrect. Why it's spelled in that way? But that was a genuine question that I had. And literally people looked at me and said, you're not Italian. You cannot not understand. And I said, my name is Giulia, spelled Giulia. Maybe I know something more. Like, yeah, it's...
I mean, right? No, I mean, it's like, I guess it depends on like, just so many different things, but I don't like this aspect of like gatekeeping. And I guess like it'll be interesting to see what happens now that like there are so many people in that have, instead of like monoracial society and families, we're seeing multiracial, like children and families, and it's like becoming more commonplace. But like, you open a magazine like 25 years ago, it was all like homogenous. It's all like white people, right? You know, like, so it's hard to see, and like to turn on the TV, even watching Sex in the City, it's like, how many people of color do you see in there? How many mixed race characters do you see there? You know, representation is like completely lack thereof. So I don't know. I feel like it's one of these conversations that we have to approach with like a continued like open mind. And like, it's just crazy to me how even in the past 10 years, things have shifted. Like, I remember America's Next Top Model has like an episode that's banned where they switch cultures, and they do like a completely, if you want to talk about cultural appropriation, find that banned episode. They completely do like blackface. Oh gosh, they do all these things. Like, it's, and that was in the 2008 or so. Like, not even 2 decades ago.
Yeah, 15.
Sorry, just thinking, like, I feel like it's going to be this continued conversation of like push and pull, and like, can you dip your toe in, but you don't want to overstep. And like, it's like a fine line of like you're saying, give credit and maybe partner with people in a way that's ethical, but don't like encroach, and don't like claim it as yours when it's not yours, kind of thing.
Yes. I wanted to say that fashion, to me, as I explained in the beginning, it kind of like allow the fluidity of identity, exchange identity, change it, you know, as Stephanie was saying, like, you know, one day I want to be a thing, the next day I want to be something else, you know, and be open to these changes, be multi-layered. What fascinated me the most in fashion and allow me to be, to find my true self in a way. Nowadays, it's not necessarily like that, you know. It also can be the completely opposite, like very superficial and shallow and just like, I like this color, that's it, right? I don't know, like, what would you like to see nowadays in the future?
In our private conversation, I've mentioned this before. It is very nice to see the direction that we are taking, or at least in the fashion business, the direction that this is going through, to which is the inclusivity of different types of beauty, and the respect for the other human being. Everything, I find it, or also the attention towards the environment that sometimes translate in greenwashing, sometimes translates in something that is actually more useful. My hope is that it's not something that doesn't last, and it's not just a trend, and because it's pretty fundamental, I think, for us as human beings to be able to stay on this planet. Really, I think that aside from the inclusivity, that doesn't have to do with the planet, but the environmental subject, yes, I hope that it's something that doesn't go away, and I hope we keep on putting more effort into being more inclusive and more respectful, because that's the only way we really have for us to fix something that is going down. Right at the present moment, I feel that it's going down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think I'd love to see just like more collaborations, like you know, across cultures, and obviously, like, you know, I think within sustainability, like, I just want more people to feel like they have a seat at the table, you know. I think we need to spotlight more designers that are, you know, of Italian descent, like that woman like Stella Jean, right, who's like Italian but also mixed race. Like, I'd like to see that more, rather than people like, I think, putting people in boxes as like, this is just like, this is their only culture kind of thing, you know, they're only like whatever. I'd love to see more of that, just more representation, even at, you know, Fashion Week, like I said, with more guidelines on how we can bring in this like environmental aspect that is going to transcend like from one season to the next and actually benefit us, rather than like, you know, what everyone's fearful of, which is like if it doesn't work out. So we just need like a fashion industry total system change, essentially.
Beautiful.
I would like to see more diverse leadership. I think that, there was this very interesting talk that Ruha Benjamin, I hope that I'm saying her name correctly. She's an academic scholar. Her bread and butter basically is technology and how race and gender basically, impact how technology works and, serve us in our daily lives. She had just she's very viral right now, so if you have the chance, Ruha Benjamin, go look up her website or Twitter, Instagram. There's something in the lines of, it really doesn't matter if we have, black, brown, TLGBTQ plus representation when it comes to just content or just people out there in the forefront. It is important also to have these amount of people just as much, at the forefront, but also in the back. So leadership, not just we're doing amazing progress, and we should do more. I'm not saying that we should stop. When it comes to, we mentioned models and talents in the entertainment industry, but also leadership. So executives, presidents, secretaries, people that actually, they do the homework, they put their hours in, people that are not always on the front of the magazines, administrative assistants also, they matter very much.
Creative directors.
In
fashion, right?
Exactly. We need more diversity in that, and not just Black, but also diversity when it comes to religion. The way that we think and our lifestyles and philosophies, they impact also how do we want to deal and lead, our business and our lives.
Great. We couldn't end better than this. Grazie. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Grazie.
Thank you. We're done. Yeah.